Welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We are tackling something that fundamentally shapes our entire society, but let's be honest, it often feels locked away behind thick, dusty law books. Today, we are completely demystifying the framework of Philippine criminal law. Think of society as a giant, incredibly complex game. To keep things from descending into total chaos, you need a strict, non-negotiable set of rules. You need to know exactly what those rules are, who has to play by them, where the playing field actually is, and exactly when the rules take effect. And that is exactly what we are breaking down today through the specific characteristics of criminal law.
Okay, so here is our logical roadmap for this explainer. First, we're defining the rulebook. Then we'll cover generality, which is who is covered. Third is territoriality, where it applies. Fourth, we'll look at Article 2, which is reaching beyond borders. And finally, prospectivity, which is when the rules actually apply.
All right, let's dive right in with Section 1, defining the rulebook.
So the state uses what's known as its police power to create this rulebook to protect the community. Now, classic definitions, like the one from 12 Psych 129, formally define criminal law as the branch that defines crimes and provides for their punishment. But take a look at Bouvietta's Law Dictionary. It says a crime is an act violating a public law. This is a really important distinction. Criminal law isn't about private disputes between you and your neighbor over offense. It is an offense against the state itself. When you break a criminal law, you are literally violating a rule established for the protection of the entire public.
Now, there is a really stark contrast here between different legal systems around the world. In places like the United States and England, they actually have what are called common law crimes. These are crimes based on unwritten principles, history, and usage. But the Philippines, it operates strictly on statutory law. This means if an act isn't explicitly defined and punished by a written penal code or a special penal law passed by the legislature, it simply is not a crime. No way around it. You could do something socially or morally terrible, absolutely awful, but if there is no written law against it, there is zero criminal liability. The rulebook absolutely must be in writing.
Moving on to Section 2, Generality. Who exactly is covered by this rulebook?
Well, Article 14 of the new Civil Code lays it out perfectly. It states that penal laws are obligatory upon all who live or sojourn in Philippine territory. The absolute key word there is sojourn. It really doesn't matter if you are a citizen born and raised in Manila or a tourist who just stepped off a plane in Palawan for a 2-week vacation. While you are physically inside the territory, generality means the law applies to you equally. You definitely don't get a free pass just because you're holding a foreign passport. But, as with all things in law, there are always exceptions. Treaties and laws of preferential application, like the RUS Visiting Forces Accord, for example, dictate that certain foreign diplomats, heads of state, or military personnel operating under specific treaties might actually not be subject to local criminal prosecution in the exact same way an average citizen or tourist would be. So the rulebook is general, yes, but the state can diplomatically agree to specific carve-outs.
Okay, that brings us to Section 3, territoriality. Where exactly does all of this apply?
The principle of territoriality basically means Philippine penal laws are only enforceable within its physical territory. But, and this is crucial, territory is a three-dimensional concept. We aren't just talking about the physical landmass of the Philippine archipelago. It actually includes the atmosphere straight up above it, it includes the interior waters like the lakes and rivers, and it even extends out into the ocean through its designated maritime zone. If a criminal act happens anywhere within this specific 3D physical box, Philippine criminal law has jurisdiction over it.
Which naturally leads us right into Section 4, Article 2 exceptions, and how the law reaches beyond those borders.
So, thinking about that 3D box forces us to ask a pretty massive question. Does the law truly end at the border? I mean, what happens if someone does something right outside the geographical boundaries of the Philippines, but the whole act is designed to completely destroy the country from the outside? The state's police power wouldn't be very effective if it couldn't protect itself from external threats, right?
And that is exactly where the 5 extraterritorial exceptions of Article 2 come into play. Check this out. Even if you are entirely outside the Philippines, the Revised Penal Code still applies to you if you commit a crime in these 5 scenarios. First, on a Philippine ship or airship, because a Philippine-registered vessel is legally considered a floating or flying extension of the national territory. Second and third, forging Philippine currency or introducing that forged currency into the country. Because think about it, faking the peso from a basement in another country is a direct attack on the economic lifeblood of the Philippines. Fourth, if you are a public officer committing an offense in the exercise of your functions, like say a corrupt diplomat at a foreign embassy. And fifth, committing crimes against national security, like treason or piracy. In all of these cases, the long arm of Philippine law literally reaches out across the globe because those acts fundamentally threaten the nation itself.
Finally, we hit Section 5, Prospectivity. This is all about when the rules actually kick in.
I want you to picture a timeline for a second. This illustrates an absolute bedrock of constitutional fairness, which is the prohibition against ex post facto laws. Let's say you do something today that is entirely 100% legal, but tomorrow the legislature passes a brand new law making that exact action a crime. Can the police arrest you for what you did yesterday? Absolutely not. Criminal laws are strictly prospective. They only look forward. You cannot make an act punishable in a manner in which it was not punishable when you committed it. As the Bill of Rights mandates, you cannot pass a retroactive law that is prejudicial to the accused. You literally cannot change the rules of the game after the play has already happened.
So, the crucial point here is, does a criminal law ever look backwards? Well, actually, yes, but under one very strict, highly compassionate condition. The Article 22 exception dictates that penal laws shall have a retroactive effect only insofar as they favor the accused. For example, imagine a person is in prison currently serving a 10-year sentence. Suddenly, a new law is passed reducing the maximum penalty for that specific crime to just 5 years. That new law applies retroactively, and that person actually gets the benefit of the lighter sentence. The only catch here is that this leniency absolutely does not apply to habitual criminals, but generally speaking, the system is designed to be as protective of the accused as possible.
And wow, that brings us to the end of our explainer. We have seen today that the state wields incredible police power to define and punish crimes. But by forcing the rule book to be written in black and white, making it apply generally to those inside the territory, strictly defining its physical bounds while having very specific extraterritorial protections, and ensuring laws only ever look forward, the system essentially builds a protective cage around its own power. So, I want to leave you with this question to ponder today. How do these strict characteristics of generality, territoriality, and prospectivity perfectly balance the state's sheer power to punish with the individual's right to ultimate fairness and due process? It is a truly delicate, brilliant balance that keeps our entire society functioning. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack the rules of the game today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.